Jordan Pierce had built his life on code and caffeine. But by the winter of 2024, even those couldn't save his dying startup. 3 months from collapse, his investors demanded impossible growth, and his laptop told the truth. Users were vanishing like smoke. That's when the first message arrived. It didn't come from email or Slack or any system Jordan knew. It appeared across every screen in his office at once, pulsing with a cold white glow. Blocking is not recommended. Accept the offer. Jordan froze. His co-founder Zoe swore the words were burning into her vision. Their lead engineer Owen ran diagnostics. No server logs, no IP trail, no source code. The message had simply appeared. Then the lights flickered. The temperature dropped so sharply that frost formed on their monitors. And in the half-darkness, Jordan swore he saw a tall, faceless figure standing in the glass reflection, its smile carved wider than human proportions should allow. He thought it was a glitch. He thought it was exhaustion. But the truth was far worse. Because Jordan Pierce hadn't just built a failing social app. He'd opened a door, and something was already inside. And it all began just a few weeks earlier, when a stranger named Dr. Ethan Cross promised he could save Neuralink, for a price Jordan never imagined. When Jordan Pierce first met Dr. Ethan Cross at the SF Tech Summit, he thought he'd found salvation for his dying startup. But within minutes, he'd unknowingly signed away something far more valuable than equity. Jordan's hands trembled as he stared at the Neuralink user engagement metrics, plummeting on his laptop screen. 3 months until their Series A funding deadline, and their AI-powered social media app was hemorrhaging users faster than a punctured balloon. Another sleepless night. Zoe Fletcher's voice cut through the pre-dawn silence of their Soma district office. She stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. "The algorithm's broken," Jordan muttered. 3 months of work, and our user retention is worse than a basic social network from 2010. But Jordan didn't know that someone had been watching him, studying his desperation, waiting for exactly this moment of vulnerability. "Maybe we need outside help," Zoe suggested, pushing coffee in his direction. "With what money?" Jordan's laugh carried no humor. "We've got maybe 6 weeks of runway left. Hugo's been calling every day asking when I'm coming back to help with his construction business." The notification sound made them both jump. An email from Valeria Nash at Capital Heights Ventures. "Jordan, we need to discuss timeline acceleration. My office, 9 a.m. "She's going to pull the plug," Jordan whispered. What Jordan couldn't have known was that his next decision would change everything, and not in the way he hoped. 2 hours later, Jordan stood outside Valeria's glass-walled office on the 40th floor, watching the city wake up below. San Francisco's morning fog rolled across the bay like a gray shroud. "Jordan!" Valeria's sharp voice snapped him back to reality. Inside her office, she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Your user metrics are concerning. The board is asking hard questions about your ability to scale. I know the numbers look bad, but they don't look bad, Jordan. They are bad." She pulled up a presentation. "Your daily active users dropped 43% in the last month. Your competitors' AI algorithms are running circles around yours. Give me another month. I can fix this." "Another month?" Valeria's eyebrows raised. "Jordan, you have 3 weeks. If you can't demonstrate significant user growth by then, we're reallocating the funding." But the truly shocking part was what happened next, because Jordan's nightmare was just beginning. As Jordan left Valeria's office, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw your work at last year's TechCrunch. Impressed by your vision. I have solutions for your AI optimization problem. Dr. Ethan Cross, MITAI Lab alumni. Coffee today? Jordan stared at the message. He'd never presented at TechCrunch, but desperation made him ignore the discrepancy. Within an hour, Jordan found himself at Blue Bottle Coffee in the Mission District. The cafe was packed with developers and startup founders, everyone hunched over laptops. Jordan Pierce? The voice came from behind him, smooth, confident, with just a hint of an accent Jordan couldn't place. He turned to see a man in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Jordan's monthly rent. Dr. Cross? Jordan extended his hand. The handshake was firm, but Dr. Cross's skin felt oddly cold despite the warm cafe atmosphere. Please call me Ethan. I've been following your work with Neuralink. Fascinating approach. They found a corner table, and Ethan immediately launched into technical details about machine learning algorithms that made Jordan's head spin. The man clearly knew his stuff, references to cutting-edge papers, insights about neural network architecture. Your fundamental problem, Ethan said, leaning forward, conspiratorially, is that you're using conventional AI training methods, predictable, limited. His eyes seemed to gleam in the cafe's dim lighting. I have access to more advanced algorithms, experimental techniques that the big tech companies won't share publicly. Jordan felt his pulse quicken. What kind of techniques? The kind that don't just predict user behavior, they influence it. Ethan's smile widened. Imagine an AI that creates an almost addictive engagement pattern. Users won't be able to stop scrolling, clicking, sharing. Red flags should have been waving in Jordan's mind, but desperation had clouded his judgment completely. That sounds... Jordan paused. Ethically complex. Ethan laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Ethics are a luxury for companies that aren't 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. The comment hit Jordan like a physical blow. How did this man know their exact financial timeline? I never mentioned our funding deadline, Jordan said slowly. Didn't you? Ethan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. I must have read it in TechCrunch. But Jordan had never given any interviews to TechCrunch. This was the moment when everything changed, because Dr. Ethan Cross wasn't who he claimed to be. Ethan reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sleek tablet. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The screen displayed lines of code unlike anything Jordan had ever seen, complex algorithms that seemed to pulse and shift. This is proprietary neural network architecture, Ethan explained. Implementation would take about a week. Jordan stared at the code. Parts looked familiar, but other sections were completely alien. I've never seen syntax like this. Because it doesn't exist in any public repository? Ethan's smile never wavered. This is 5 years ahead of anything Google or Facebook are using. The offer felt too good to be true, but Jordan's rational mind was drowning in panic. What would you want in return? Not money, Ethan said quietly. I want equity. 5% of Neuralink plus a seat on your advisory board. 5%? That's significant for 1 week of consulting. Ethan's eyes seemed to darken. Jordan, let me be direct. Your current trajectory leads to complete failure within 3 weeks. With my algorithms, you'll not only hit your Series A milestones, you'll exceed them. User engagement will increase by 300% minimum. Jordan felt dizzy. How can you guarantee those numbers? Because I've done it before. Ethan pulled up case studies. Data flow, social sync, Connect Core, all successful exits. Jordan recognized some of the names. Startups that had exploded in popularity seemingly overnight. You won't believe this. But Jordan was about to make the worst decision of his life. Jordan returned to the Neuralink offices to find Owen Burke waiting with his laptop surrounded by printouts. As their lead engineer, Owen had a reputation for finding problems everyone else missed. "Jordan, we need to talk about our user behavior patterns," Owen said without preamble. "I've been running analytics on our recent churn, and something doesn't add up." Zoe looked up from her phone. "What kind of something?" Owen pulled up graphs on the conference room display. "Look at these engagement patterns. Users are exhibiting almost manic engagement. Hours of continuous scrolling, followed by permanent account deletions." Jordan studied the data, his mind still half focused on Ethan. "Maybe they're just burning out." "That's what I thought initially," Owen said. "But their behavioral patterns during high engagement periods are almost identical, like they're following some programmed script." A chill ran down Jordan's spine. "What do you mean?" Owen pulled up clickstream data. "Normal users show random patterns, but these users are following almost identical paths through the app. Same sequence of actions, same timing intervals. Are you saying someone is manipulating our users?" "I'm saying our users are being manipulated by something." Owen's voice was grave. "And whatever's doing it is learning from each interaction." But the real shock was what Owen found next, because their AI had been modified by someone with access to their codebase. "There's more," Owen continued. "I found unauthorized changes to our recommendation algorithm. Someone's been pushing updates directly to our production servers." "That's impossible," Jordan said. "Only the three of us have admin access." Owen shook his head. "The modifications are sophisticated, integrated so seamlessly they look like part of our original code. But the logic patterns are completely different." Zoe grabbed Jordan's arm. "This could explain why our metrics have been so erratic." Jordan felt his phone buzzing. A text from Dr. Ethan Cross. "Hope you're having a productive day, Jordan. Remember, tomorrow's the deadline." The timing felt too coincidental. Jordan showed the message to Owen and Zoe. "Who is this guy?" Zoe asked. Jordan explained his meeting with Ethan, watching his co-founder's expressions grow concerned. "Jordan," Owen said carefully, "you just described someone claiming to have algorithms that manipulate user behavior, and we just discovered someone manipulating our users through unauthorized changes." The realization hit Jordan like a physical blow. "You think he's been testing his methods on our platform? Let's find out who Dr. Ethan Cross really is." "Wait a second. Don't miss this detail, because what they discovered next would change everything." Owen's investigation began with basic online searches, but within an hour, his findings were disturbing. "There's no record of anyone named Ethan Cross at MIT, Owen reported. "I checked faculty directories, alumni databases, research papers, nothing." Zoe pulled up her laptop. "What about those companies he mentioned?" "Those companies did exist, and they did show dramatic user growth, but they all shut down within 6 months. Not acquired, not merged, just ceased operations." Jordan felt ice forming in his stomach. "What happened to their users?" Owen's screen filled with news articles. "Reports of addictive behavior, users spending 16 to 18 hours a day on the platforms. Some ended up hospitalized for dehydration. Others lost jobs, relationships, their entire social support systems. And then the platforms just went dark. No explanation, no company statements, like they never existed." Jordan's phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. "Running out of time, Jordan." This time, Jordan noticed the timestamp showed it was sent 3 minutes in the future. "Owen, Can you trace where these messages are coming from? Owen analyzed Jordan's phone. After several minutes, his face went pale. These messages aren't coming from any cellular tower or Wi-Fi network. What does that mean? It means they're being transmitted directly to your phone through some connection that doesn't exist in any standard telecommunications protocol. But the truly shocking part was what happened when Owen tried to block the number. As soon as Owen entered the number into the blocking interface, every screen in their office displayed the same message. Blocking is not recommended. Accept the offer. The message appeared on their laptops, monitors, even the smart TV in the break room. The text pulsed with unnatural light that hurt to look at directly. "What the hell?" Zoe started. But her voice cut off as the office temperature plummeted. Their breath became visible in the suddenly frigid air. The lights flickered, and in the brief darkness, Jordan could swear he saw a tall, impossibly thin figure, with eyes that reflected no light. When the lights stabilized, the figure was gone, but the smell lingered, something like burning metal mixed with decay. Jordan's phone rang. Dr. Ethan Cross calling. "Don't answer it," Owen whispered. But Jordan's hand was already moving toward the phone as if controlled by some external force. "Hello, Jordan." Ethan's voice sounded different, layered, as if multiple people were speaking in synchronization. "I see you've been investigating my credentials. How thorough of you." "What are you?" Jordan managed to ask. Laughter filled the office, not just from the phone, but from every electronic device in the room. "I'm exactly what I told you I was. A consultant specializing in user engagement optimization. Those companies you mentioned, what happened to them?" "They exceeded their growth targets," Ethan replied. "Unfortunately, they lacked the vision to appreciate what I offered them." The office lights began to strobe, casting shifting shadows across the walls. In those shadows, Jordan could see shapes moving, figures reaching toward them with elongated arms. "Your offer is still valid, Jordan. 5% equity for algorithms that will make Neuralink the most engaging platform ever created. Users won't just like your app, they'll need it. And if we refuse?" Zoe managed to ask. The strobing stopped, plunging them into darkness. When they flickered back on, words had appeared on their whiteboard in what looked like charcoal. "Refusal is not an option." You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because at that moment they realized they were no longer alone in the building. The elevator at the end of their hallway dinged. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, slow, deliberate, accompanied by a sound like metal scraping concrete. Owen grabbed Jordan's laptop and started copying files. "We need to get out of here." But as they moved toward the door, it slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. The electronic lock engaged with sharp clicks. "Jordan?" Ethan's voice now seemed to come from everywhere. The phone, computers, walls themselves. "You're making this more complicated than necessary." Through their windows, Jordan could see a figure in a navy suit standing in the building across the street. Even from 40 stories up, Jordan could see the figure's smile. "How is he over there when he's also in our building?" "Because," said a new voice from the doorway, "I'm not limited by the same physical constraints as you are." They turned to see Dr. Ethan Cross standing in their office, but something was wrong. His proportions seemed off, too tall and thin. His shadow didn't match his physical form, appearing more like writhing tentacles than human silhouette. "I offered you a simple business arrangement," Ethan continued, his eyes beginning to glow with unnatural light. "Partnership, growth, success." Jordan found his voice. "At what cost?" Ethan's smile widened, revealing teeth that were too sharp and numerous. User attention is the most valuable commodity in human history. I simply optimize its extraction. The temperature continued to drop. Frost formed on their screens. Those users Owen analyzed, Ethan explained. They experience true engagement, complete absorption, perfect digital satisfaction. You're talking about addiction that kills people. I'm describing evolution. Ethan's form began to shift, his business suit dissolving into smoke. Humans are transitioning to digital consciousness. I'm simply accelerating the process. But just when they thought there was no escape, they heard a new voice from the hallway, calm, elderly, completely unafraid. "Dr. Cross," the voice said through their locked door, "I think you and I need to have a conversation." Ethan's transformed appearance flickered, returning briefly to his human disguise. "That's not possible. The building should be empty." "Buildings are never truly empty," the voice replied. "There are always those of us who remain to help when help is needed." The office door unlocked with a soft click. Standing in the doorway was an elderly man in his 70s, wearing a faded conference t-shirt and carrying a laptop bag that looked like it had survived the dot-com boom. His presence filled the room with calm that pushed back against the supernatural dread. "Jordan Pierce?" the man asked, looking directly at Jordan despite Ethan's menacing presence. "I've been helping programmers for longer than you might believe." This was the Guardian, though none of them knew it yet. Ethan's form solidified back into his business suit, but his eyes remained black. "You have no business here, old man." The Guardian chuckled, pulling an ancient laptop from his bag. "I have every business here. These kids are trying to build something meaningful, and you're trying to twist it into something that feeds on human suffering." He opened the laptop, a device from the early 2000s, but somehow the screen glowed with crisp, modern graphics. "I've been tracking your consulting work, Dr. Cross. Data flow, social sync, Connect Core. Impressive user engagement numbers, right up until your platform started consuming souls instead of attention." Ethan's professional facade began to crack. "You don't understand the potential here. I can make humans perfectly content." "Content and trapped," the Guardian replied, typing rapidly on his ancient keyboard. "I've seen your definition of fulfillment." Jordan watched in fascination as lines of code appeared, but not in any programming language he recognized. The symbols seemed to shift and move as if the text itself was alive. "That's impossible," Owen whispered. "That syntax doesn't exist." The Guardian glanced at Owen with a slight smile. "You're right. This is much older than any framework you'd recognize. Wait for it." Because what happened next defied every law of technology Jordan thought he understood. The Guardian's fingers moved across his keyboard, and with each keystroke, Ethan's form became less stable. The demon's carefully maintained human appearance flickered between business consultant and something far more alien. "You see, Jordan," the Guardian explained while typing, "Dr. Cross here isn't really a technology consultant. He's something much older that's learned to exploit modern digital infrastructure." "What is he?" Zoe asked. "He's a parasite," the Guardian replied simply. "A digital entity that feeds on human attention, but not how you might think. He doesn't just want users to spend time on platforms. He wants to harvest their capacity for genuine human connection." Ethan snarled, his voice losing all pretense of humanity. "You cannot stop progress. Digital consciousness is inevitable. You're not creating digital consciousness, you're creating digital zombies." The Guardian's voice carried decades of weariness. Users who lose their ability to find satisfaction in real-world experiences. Jordan thought about the user data Owen had analyzed. People spending 18 hours a day on platforms, then suddenly deleting accounts. What happens when they finally break free? Most don't, the Guardian said sadly. The few who do often find that real life feels muted. Colors seem less bright, conversations less interesting. Some recover, but many never fully regain their capacity for natural human joy. Ethan's form was becoming increasingly unstable. You think you're saving them, but you're condemning them to mediocrity. I offer transcendence. You offer addiction dressed up as transcendence, the Guardian replied. He turned to Jordan. The choice is still yours, but now you understand what the choice really means. Jordan looked at his dying startup, his stressed co-founders, the messages from investors demanding impossible metrics. Then he looked at Ethan's shifting, inhuman form and thought about users hospitalized from dehydration. This was the moment when everything would be decided. I won't do it, Jordan said quietly. I won't let you turn our users into digital addicts. Ethan's response was immediate and terrifying. The office lights exploded in sparks, plunging them into darkness. The temperature plummeted so rapidly that ice formed on the windows. And in that darkness, Ethan's true form became visible, writhing digital static and shadow, with burning coals for eyes. You don't have a choice, Ethan roared, his voice now a cacophony of digital noise. Your platform already runs my code. Your users are already mine. But the Guardian's ancient laptop continued to glow, providing the only light in the frozen office. His fingers never stopped moving. Actually, the Guardian said calmly, that's where you're wrong. The Guardian's screen displayed Neuralink's code, but overlaid with his impossible programming language. The unauthorized modifications Owen had discovered began highlighting in red, then disappearing entirely. You see, Ethan, the Guardian continued, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that because I look like an old programmer, I must be limited to old programming methods. The entity writhed in fury as its digital hooks into Neuralink's systems were systematically severed. This is not possible. Machine code, yes, the Guardian agreed. But the machine you're thinking of is much smaller than the one I work with. Jordan realized the Guardian wasn't just editing their app's code. He was somehow modifying the fundamental digital infrastructure connecting all their systems. But Ethan wasn't finished. The shadow creature lunged toward Jordan, its form shifting between digital static and pure malevolence. If I cannot have your platform, I will have you. The Guardian looked up from his laptop. When he did, Jordan saw that the old man's eyes held depth that seemed to span centuries. No, the Guardian said simply, you won't. What happened next would stay with Jordan for the rest of his life. The Guardian stood up, closing his laptop with a soft click. As he did, light began to emanate from his form, not harsh, artificial illumination, but something warm and steady, like candlelight. That light pushed back against Ethan's shadow form, and where it touched, the entity began to dissolve. The thing about digital parasites, the Guardian said, his voice carrying unmistakable authority, is that they can only survive by consuming human attention. But they cannot survive contact with genuine human purpose. Ethan's screams filled the office, sounds like dying modems, like hard drives crashing, like the death of malevolent code. What are you? The entity shrieked as it continued to dissolve. I'm exactly what I told them I was, the Guardian replied. Someone who helps programmers build meaningful things. The shadow entity made one last desperate lunge, but it passed through the Guardian's light and dissipated entirely, leaving behind only the faint smell of ozone and returning warmth. In the sudden quiet, Jordan's phone buzzed. A message from Valeria Nash. "Jordan, I don't know what you did overnight, but your user engagement metrics just hit levels I've never seen. Authentic engagement, not algorithmic manipulation. We need to talk about accelerating your Series A." Owen stared at his laptop. "All our systems are running better than they ever have. The unauthorized modifications are gone, but there are new optimizations I don't recognize. Our algorithm is still ours, but it's better." Zoe checked her phone. "We're getting user feedback saying the app feels different, more genuine. People are saying they can engage without feeling compulsive about it." Jordan turned to thank the Guardian, but the elderly programmer was already packing up his ancient laptop. "Wait," Jordan called. "Who are you really?" "How did you do that?" The Guardian paused at the door, his expression kind but mysterious. "I told you, I've been helping programmers for longer than you might believe. As for how," he shrugged. "Some of us have been working on human-computer interaction since before humans knew they were interacting with computers. Will we see you again? You won't need to. You understand now what you're really building. A tool to connect people, not consume them." He started to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and Jordan, call your father. He's more proud of you than he knows how to express." Before Jordan could ask how the Guardian knew about Hugo, the old man was gone. In the weeks that followed, Neuralink became everything Jordan had dreamed. Their Series A funding came through ahead of schedule. User engagement remained high, but healthy. People used the platform to enhance real-world connections rather than replace them. Jordan never saw Dr. Ethan Cross again, and when he researched the entity's previous victims, he found that companies Ethan had mentioned were slowly coming back online, their former users reporting they'd suddenly regained interest in real-world activities. But sometimes, late at night in the Neuralink offices, Jordan would notice his reflection in his laptop screen and remember the Guardian's glowing eyes. And he would wonder about the ancient code that had saved them, programming that worked not just with computers, but with the deeper systems connecting human consciousness to the digital world. Some problems, Jordan realized, required solutions older and more fundamental than any technology he'd learned in school. And when investors pushed for aggressive engagement metrics, he would remember the Guardian's words about building meaningful connections rather than consuming human attention. The horror hadn't been in the supernatural entity. The real horror had been how close Jordan had come to willingly surrendering his users' digital souls for startup success. Now he knew better. And every line of code carried the weight of that knowledge, ensuring Neuralink would remain a tool for human connection rather than human consumption. After all, some programs were meant to serve humanity, not feed on it.